Sign up at the end of this review to get my personal gear list.
What I really enjoy as a musician is hearing a tune, playing with a performer, going, what does this song need? Because that's what I want to play.
Right.
You know, you could play lots of fancy stuff, all kinds of different things.
Sure.
And that's fun. It's fun as a guitar player. But,
Yeah.
But what I like is when you hear a tune and all the parts were exactly what that thing needed to be.
All right. Andy, segment 3.
Okay.
Rolling?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Levi.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
So we've talked about the 600 series, specs, philosophy, and I know that this comes from you being a player as well, because I've been out here before and I've heard you play, and you're an awesome player. And aside from Andy Powers, the guitar builder, if you can separate the guitar builder from the player, can you share with us a little bit about your playing history? How you started, what you got into? Do you record? Do you still find time to do that?
I do. My guitar playing history, it could be summed up pretty well by my dad. He walked in a while back and I was playing. He goes, you know, I've heard you play and you're not as bad as you sound. And that's pretty much how it's gone. But kidding aside, he did actually say that. But no, I got my dad's a carpenter.
Okay.
And both my parents are hobbyist musicians. And they're both huge music fans. Like, literally anything goes.
Yeah.
You know, country western, the Bob Wills, Texas Playboys stuff,
Yeah.
to a bunch of classical stuff, some jazz, some all over the map, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I grew up in this household where, you know, there was instruments around, and a lot of their friends played music and woodworking. So for me, the two of them kind of were just, they always went hand in hand.
Right.
You know, they couldn't be separated. Because I started on piano when I was real little, maybe probably 5-ish. I started taking lessons. But the guitar was really the thing. And specifically, I liked the shape of guitars.
Really?
Yeah, I really liked the shape of guitars. And I liked the sounds that came out of it. I liked the songs that my parents played on them.
Yeah.
I liked the songs that their friends played on them. And we used to have these, like backyard barbecues and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of their friends were fishermen, others carpenters and things. So they'd all come and have these big fish barbecues. And there'd be a bunch of guitars around and play old bluegrass tunes or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I kind of grew up thinking, well, that's what people do with guitars. I like that.
Right.
It's a lot of fun. And so I got really into guitar, and that was always my instrument. You know, I ended up playing lots of different kinds, lots of different instruments. I played mandolins and ukes and guitars and a little bit of banjo.
Nice.
Pedal steel.
Oh, very cool.
Dobro,
Nice.
You know, whatever I could get my hands on, because I like lots of different styles of music.
Yeah.
I like playing a lot of different things. So as a player, that's kind of been my role. I haven't done much touring, mostly because I didn't like being away from a workshop. I didn't like being away from my workshop for extended periods of time, and I don't like being away from the ocean, because I'm an avid surfer. Growing up in San Diego, you kind of get into that, and it's sort of an addiction. You know, and you start to freak out a little bit after a few days away. So I've played a lot of shows, but most of them here in town.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't like leaving my guitar making, because I was really young when I got into guitars.
Yeah.
And that was something that was equally as captivating as playing music.
So they literally have always gone hand in
I've
hand.
never been able to separate them, because I've done both of them as long as I can remember. And I was maybe 7 or 8 years old when I built my first guitar, or tried. It blew up into a million pieces. But you know, when you're that age, it doesn't really matter if it blows up. That's almost as good as if it had worked.
Yeah.
Maybe better, depending. And so
not being able to separate the two. So let's say you're out there playing. Are you thinking, I wonder if this would sound different if this was built in such a way, or I could tweak the way that this sounds this way. And conversely, are you sitting at your bench being like, I want it to sound this way because I'm going to play this gig?
Absolutely. And in my case, I wonder how, there's some guitar makers who are real good builders. And I wonder, how in the world do you build a guitar this good? Because you can't play a note, you can't hardly tune the thing. For me, I've always looked at it as both sides.
Yeah.
I look at this piece of wood and look at it as a woodworker would and go, okay, what am I going to do with this to get what I want out of it?
Right.
And I look at the whole process from the player's perspective as, well, this is the instrument I'm trying to build. What am I going to do to ensure that I end up with what I want? You know, I need to alter this part, I need to do this, I need to change this bracing pattern or alter the thickness of this piece to make sure it's the kind of instrument that I want when I'm all done.
I was just, you were saying that, I was like, that could be a vicious cycle. Does it ever leave the bench?
There are some that haven't. No, it's, you kind of have an idea of what you're shooting for.
Yeah.
It's like when you go into a studio with the intent of making a record.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tweak stuff to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But at the end, go, okay, that's the record. That's a good snapshot of what we were trying to accomplish.
Right, right.
That's what we should put out.
That's a great way to look at it. I like that.
Because most of my playing ends up in a recording studio. One of the real fun things for me is, you know, I'll get a call from a friend or another musician. They go, hey, we're going to make a record. Bring some stuff. So I'll load up the truck, drive out to a studio or fly wherever I need to go and literally back a truck up with all this stuff. You know, I'll unload a pedal steel, unload some guitars.
Yeah.
You know, they'll have a B3 there or mandolins or whatever and kind of set all this gear up and go, all right, let's make a record.
Yeah.
Let's make some magic, you know.
That's awesome. I was leafing through, I don't know what magazine it was, some NAMM report, and there was a picture of you in there playing mandolin, and I was like, oh, I guess I never knew that. And then it was then, you know, that I was like, oh, yeah, guitar builder, player, that all makes sense, and it's interesting to hear your viewpoint of how the two feed off of one another. And on top of that, and you may have already kind of touched on this with your discussion of the 600 series, but your overall build philosophy and almost start, you know, you build arch tops. What goes into, you know, you're sitting down, you're looking at your raw materials, you're going to build a guitar. What's going through Andy Power's head as he's looking at the bench like, here we go?
Well, it's a combination of different things. First of all, you have to decide what it is you want in the end. You know, if you don't have an idea of what it is you're trying to get, you'll never know when you get there.
Right. That's a good point.
Right? You gotta, before you start driving to a location, you gotta know where you're gonna go.
Right.
Unless the point is just to drive.
Right.
You know, I've done plenty of that.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is, I feel like any good craftsman, whether you're a musician, a woodworker, or a painter, you develop a relationship with the material that you're working with. Because if you're trying to coerce some material into doing something it doesn't naturally want to do, you're bound to fail. That's not going to work. A good craftsman will form a relationship and accommodate, either pick a material that will do what they want it to do, or change their design or, you know, kind of outlook or working method to accommodate this material and ask it to do what it naturally wants to do. That's when somebody's going to be successful at making something.
Interesting.
So if I have a big piece of wood sitting on my workbench, let's say it's a big block of spruce that's going to become a top, or several tops, or what have you. You're going to look at that piece and decide, okay, well, it's a little bit off quarter here. This tree grew with a little twist. That means that I'm going to make an angled cut here to get exactly the guitar-shaped piece that I want from this material, because that's going to be the happy guitar. That's the one that's not going to fight you the whole way.
I just had a thought as you're saying that. I'm like, I'm sure, and just in talking with you briefly here today, I want to say that's probably how you approach playing as well. Whatever the song
Exactly.
calls for is what
That's
you want to play
exactly
to.
it.
as opposed to-
I've never been able to separate those two, because like I'm not. I like singing songs, but I'm not a singer.
Yeah.
I will say, what I really enjoy as a musician is hearing a tune, playing with a performer, and going, what does this song need? Because that's what I want to play.
Right.
You know, you could play lots of fancy stuff, all kinds of different things.
Sure.
And that's fun. It's fun as a guitar player. But,
Yeah.
But what I like is when you hear a tune and all the parts were exactly what that thing needed to be.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's the philosophy that a thing is perfect when you couldn't add one more detail or take anything away and have it be as good.
Uh-huh.
That's the right place. That's it. That's the thing you're shooting for.
God, that's profound. I like that statement. That's good. I like that a lot. It's like you get life lessons today.
Yeah,
That's
it's-
awesome.
That's really what you're shooting for. In almost, I can't think of any creative endeavor when that isn't the case. Whether it's a song, whether it's a single part of a song,
Right.
whether it's a guitar, when you couldn't add anything or take anything away and have it be as good, that's where you should stop.
That's awesome. That's incredible. One last question. Two last questions. Do you ever want to grow a beard?
I'm not real sure.
Good answer.
Not real sure. Maybe someday.
Do you still find time to play?
I do, actually.
Good. Good.
Yeah. Lately, my wife and I have 2 young kids, so I've been playing a lot of ballads the last couple of years.
Power ballads? Power sleep ballads?
More of the slow, quiet sort of thing.
Good.
So in this case, by choosing a grand concert with a 12-fret neck, that was the biggest single decision I had to make. And then I'm going to season it and flavor it with the woods that I'm picking. Same with this Brazilian Adirondack guitar. The first thing I wanted to decide was I want a versatile guitar that I can flat pick, but also play fingerstyle.